Hi, my name is Kevin and I'm a bibliophile. What is a bibliophile, you ask? A bibliophile is nothing contagious, it's not a rare disease. A bibliophile is a book enthusiast. And that's me. Today we're called bookworms, nerds, geeks. That's not always true. I've read books all my life and I've enjoyed reading books. I was a jock growing up too, so that stereotype is bad. Today I'm going to discuss how books are used in communication throughout the world. One of the things we're going to go over is the history of books, how they were used way back in 1800 BC and on up. We're also going to go over how books are used today in the military, how they're used today in the job site, no matter what type of job you're using. So let's get on to the discussion, and the first thing we'll talk about is the history. Now, the earliest form of writing was cuneiform script. Now, cuneiform script was used with pictographs, pictures. They drew pictures in clay. They used a stick or a stylus, and they would draw a picture, and that's how they communicated back and forth to each other. In 1800 BC in ancient Egypt, they used the first alphabetic writing, and their books were written on stone and clay and bark, and the words were clumped together. There was no spaces whatsoever between the words, and they were written left to right, right to left, up, down, down, up. That's just how they wrote. Back in those times, a lot of people weren't literate. What they considered literate back there was being able to sign their name. Royal families were the highest group for being literate. As time went on, in the early 14th century, Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable type printing press in Europe. Before that, the Chinese, during the Han Dynasty, used a woodblock printing type. Korea went on to invent a movable one just before Johannes Gutenberg did, but it didn't gain popularity throughout the world because of the big Chinese notations that it used. Eventually it moved on to steam powered, and that was used throughout the 1800s. So that's a little of the history of how they were written and how they were communicated with. Next, we're going to move on to how they're used in the job site today. What certain types of jobs use books a lot. How the military uses them. I'm a military man. I'm in the Navy. We use books for everything, whether it's keeping track of how many patients we saw for the day or what they had done. My wife's in the Army, and she's an officer, and a lot of officers, especially in the Army and the Marines, carry little green books in their pocket that they can write quick notes to themselves to remind themselves to do something, or to write a name down if they're going to discipline someone later for doing something wrong, or just anything, to pass on an order that was passed on from a senior officer. And a lot of enlisted carry these. Of course, there's multiple military books for the education, especially for enlisted. In my field, I go to school right now for EMS, and we do clinicals on the ambulance in the hospital. We always carry with us the EMS field guide. Now, this stays in our side pocket, and we can pull it out if we forget something, like the dosage of a certain drug. We use so many of them you can't remember all of them. Or what would happen if I gave the drug to somebody and it was wrong. I can refer back to my EMS field guide and look it up, so that way I hopefully won't make a mistake. Now, nurses and doctors, they carry around their PDRs, their drug references books. You see a lot of doctors in the hospital walking around with one, and it's a good way for them to be able to refer back. In EMS, we use what we call standing orders. We carry a book on the ambulance and it's a standing order. It's something the medical director has written in there that we do not need to call him for if that's a situation arises, like giving a certain kind of medication that we have to have permission to give. If it's in our standing orders, we don't have to call him and wake him up. Lawyers keep books in their offices, law books that they can refer back to, even though they've gone through extensive schooling, and doctors do the same. Again, that's a lot of how books are used in certain, I didn't go through a lot of jobs, but they're used in pretty much all jobs. You have books, whether it's working at McDonald's, whether it's working at a grocery store, you use books to pass things on to people. I know when I worked as a security guard, we had a logbook we had to write stuff down in to pass on to our relief. So that's how books are used in communication nowadays. So just to recap, what we went over is how books were used in communication from before Christ to now. Some of the things how they were printed on and how they were printed. And we went through how they're used on the job sites in the military. Basically went over a lot of the medical field because we use books almost in anything. So I hope you enjoyed my little speech, and I will see you later.